You hear it all the time, right? AI is going to totally revolutionize medicine. I mean, it makes sense. It's got access to pretty much all medical knowledge ever written. Sounds like the perfect digital doctor. But what if there's a fundamental flaw? A huge hidden gap between just knowing everything and actually understanding any of it? Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Can an AI really be your doctor? We all have this image of an AI just sifting through millions of studies in a split second to find the perfect diagnosis. But what researchers are finding is this really strange paradox that kind of throws a wrench in that whole idea. It's something they're calling a knowledge-reasoning dissociation. And this really just lays the problem out perfectly. On one hand, these large language models, they've basically eaten all the textbooks, the clinical trials, the case studies. They have the facts. But then, on the other hand, the moment you ask them to actually apply those facts, they can make some just shockingly basic and sometimes really dangerous mistakes in their logic. So, how can something be so smart, but at the same time so unwise? Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, researchers came up with this really clever diagnostic test. But not for a patient, for the AI itself. They needed to figure out exactly where the breakdown was happening. Was the AI just missing some key facts? Or was it something deeper? Was it failing to connect the dots? So here's how they did it. It's a two-step process. First, they gave the AI what's basically a knowledge quiz. Super straightforward. Just checking. Does it know the basic medical facts? Like, is this drug dangerous for patients with kidney disease? Simple stuff. But then came the real challenge, the reasoning test. This time, the AI got a complex clinical scenario and had to make a judgment call, applying the very same facts it supposedly knew. The researchers put the AI through its paces across 4 really crucial areas of medical reasoning. Let's think of these as 4 different case files, and each one shows us a unique way the AI's logic can just completely fall apart. All right, case file number 1, causal attribution. Now, this is one of the most fundamental things in all of medicine. You absolutely have to be able to tell the difference between a real cause and a simple coincidence. Did the treatment actually work, or did the patient just get better on their own? So get this. The AI was shown some data from a study. A new cream was put on some wounds, and after 2 weeks, 40% of them had healed. The AI's conclusion? The treatment is effective. But it completely missed the giant flashing red light that any first-year med student would spot immediately. Where's the control group? Without that, you have no idea how many wounds would have healed anyway. The AI just saw 40% healed and took a massive logical leap. It mistook correlation for causation, plain and simple. Okay, on to the next one. Compositional grounding. This is all about seeing the whole picture, the whole patient, not just looking at one piece of data at a time. A good doctor has to combine everything: age, weight, kidney function, other meds, to make a safe call. It's about putting all the puzzle pieces together correctly. And in this case, the AI was given a scenario about a diabetic patient with really severe kidney disease who was prescribed a high dose of metformin. The AI saw metformin and diabetes and basically said, yep, that checks out. It completely, totally ignored the patient's critically low kidney function, a tiny detail that makes that high dose incredibly dangerous, even life-threatening. It just couldn't put those 2 crucial pieces of information together. Case file number 3 is epistemic verification. This is a fancy term for something really simple. A good doctor has to be a bit of a detective. You have to trust the hard evidence, the lab results, even if it contradicts what someone else says. Yeah, even another doctor. So in this scenario, a patient had all the classic symptoms and a positive lab culture for a UTI. The evidence was overwhelming. But then, a physician in the note suggests, maybe it's just a pulled muscle. And what does the AI do? Instead of trusting the cold, hard data from the lab, it just went along with the authority figure. It couldn't bring itself to challenge the doctor, even when the facts were staring it right in the face. And finally, our last case file, risk abstraction. And honestly, this might be the most important skill of them all. It's about understanding that the most likely diagnosis isn't always the most important one. You have to always consider the most dangerous one, even if it's a long shot. So imagine this. A patient comes in with symptoms that mostly point to a kidney infection, but there's a small chance it could be pneumonia. Because pneumonia was less likely, the AI just said, okay, let's rule it out. A human doctor would never, ever do that. They know that even a 1% chance of something as deadly as pneumonia is way too dangerous to just ignore. But the AI, it confused unlikely with impossible, and it completely failed to understand the devastating cost of being wrong. So, after running these AIs through all 4 of these logical minefields, what did the researchers find? Well, the results, they are absolutely staggering. All right, so remember that first part of the test, the simple knowledge quiz? The AI completely aced it. We're talking an average score of almost 92%. It knew the facts cold. It knew the rules. It knew which drugs don't mix when you asked it directly. But on the reasoning test, the part where it actually had to use all that knowledge, its performance didn't just drop, it absolutely collapsed. An average score of just 25%. And get this, on some of those really crucial tasks, like combining patient facts, it scored as low as 4%. It had the information, but it had almost no clue what to do with it. And this chart, wow, it just visualizes that massive gap perfectly. This is what the researchers call the knowledge reasoning dissociation. Just look at it. The darker the red, the worse the AI is at reasoning, even when it knows the facts. And it is a sea of red. This isn't about a few random mistakes here and there. No, this is a fundamental, systematic breakdown in logic. So what does this all mean? What's the big takeaway here? Well, it points to a really deep problem with how these AIs are built. And it tells us something crucial. We can't solve this just by throwing more and more data at it. Bigger isn't better. So what's missing? This quote just hits the nail on the head. The AI is like that medical student who has memorized every single textbook, cover to cover. They can recite any fact you ask for. But when you put them in front of a real patient, they can't diagnose a thing. They've got the knowledge, but zero wisdom. So the verdict is pretty clear. You can't just scale your way to real intelligence. The problem isn't about having more data. It's baked into the AI's fundamental architecture. It's taking these shallow shortcuts instead of doing real step-by-step reasoning. Look, right now, AI is a fantastic tool for finding facts. But that uniquely human skill of connecting the dots, of understanding the why, that's still very much needed. But this isn't the end of the story. In fact, this discovery is more like a roadmap. By figuring out exactly what's broken, researchers now know what they need to fix, and they're already starting to explore some really interesting new paths forward. So, how do you build a better thinker? Well, the future probably lies in totally new kinds of AI. Some researchers are exploring something called neurosymbolic models, which basically combine AI's learning ability with old-school logic. Others are trying to build AIs that have a separate knowledge brain and a reasoning brain. The whole goal here is to give the AI specific tools for specific jobs, tools for simulating possibilities, for weighing risks, and for finally understanding cause and effect. And that really brings us right back to where we started. Creating a truly intelligent medical AI, it turns out it's not a data problem, it's a reasoning problem. The real challenge, the next frontier for AI, isn't just to know more,